The Isiah Factor Uncensored starts right now.
Welcome and thank you for joining us here on The Factor Uncensored. Can having a difference of political opinions in a relationship be a deal breaker for couples out there? According to a new study, couples with different political views are struggling in the era of President Trump. Our next guest has the details. And joining us now here on The Factor Uncensored, we have with us attorney Jennifer Hargrave with Hargrave Family Law based in Dallas. Jennifer, there was a time when we always heard opposites attract in relationships, and we've had many powerful couples, even when it comes to politics, where they worked it out. James Carville and Mary Matalin back in the 1990s. But now a new study indicates that's not always the case. Couples are having a tough time if they have politically mixed couples. So first of all, explain to us politically mixed couples.
Right. Well, you're right. Opposites do attract, and that's fun and exciting until it isn't, right? So that's not uncommon across all variety of issues. But we certainly are seeing in this day and age, I think, really an emotionally charged time with regard to politics. And we don't know how to coexist, right? I think one of the issues that contributes to this is the fact that we're all getting our news from different sources. So it used to be in the day we would sit around the family TV and we would watch one of three news channels, right?
That's it.
And then that expanded. But nowadays, our news is curated to us according to these algorithms in social media. And I know the news that I get during the day is very different than the news my husband's getting. I was just at a dinner last night with a friend who had like information I'd never even heard of. I'm like, where are you getting that? And it's such an interesting time because we kind of live in these echo chambers with an intensity wrapped around these issues. And they really cut to the core of who we are, of our identity, of our values, of our sense of what's important in life, what values we want to pass on to our children. And while the intensity of our engagement maybe has gone up, our ability to navigate a world of people who hold different views is really challenged. And that includes the spouse that we married, that we thought we know that those sparks were fun and exciting back in the day.
And of course, like you said, back in the day, but is this a different environment? Are we kind of dancing around President Trump and his administration? Is this different? And is this more difficult on politically mixed couples out there? Is it President Trump?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. President Trump is a very strong character, and he really polarizes the issues. And I think, again, it goes back to sort of the news that we're getting. We are looking at at something, but with completely different perspectives coming in at us, completely different interpretations, and we don't know how to reconcile it, right? Either President Trump is the greatest leader that our country has ever had, or he is the worst dictator that's going to destroy the world. Like these are polar opposites.
Yeah.
Well, how do we reconcile this, right?
There's no in the middle, too, for people. There's no in the middle, really.
And being in the middle and having civil discourse and allowing room to really be curious and listen to the other people, it's not in favor right now. Right? What is being driven is the wedge. It's that I'm all right and they are all wrong. And so we've just lost the sense of civil discourse and the fact that differences are interesting. And I'll tell you, when I'm talking with somebody who is of a different political, viewpoint than I am, I always want to just drop into curiosity. I want to ask questions genuinely, not to patronize somebody, not to say like, Isiah, you really believe that? Like, what the hell? That's not going to get us anywhere. But if I really come to you and I'm really curious, like, tell me, what information are you seeing or hearing about? Like, then we can at least have a conversation. But the minute we try to make somebody else view things the same way we do, in some way to really validate our own beliefs, is the minute we are in conflict. It just is. It's how we're wired.
Absolutely. Now, when we talk about the core of the issue that we have on the table, couples, if you feel like you can't even have a conversation about politics, is it wise not to bring up politics in the relationship, even though you're going to be together for the rest of your life? How do you reconcile that?
Well, I think that's the default. I think what happens is people just don't bring up those core issues. And, I could go the rest of my life and not talk about politics and be perfectly happy. But it's not the politics is the problem. It's the underlying sense of values and the aspirations and the dreams and the way we're thinking about the world. And when we can't share that with our partner because we don't know how to have those conversations, we really drift apart. And that's when I see people coming to me is when they've just learned to live separate lives, and that's no longer okay. They miss the intimacy. They miss the connection with somebody who they can share their life with. And so that's when divorce happens. And I would just say, like, if you're in that place where you are just feeling like I'm not even going to bring up the elephant in the room because it just causes so much pain, there are resources, but you need to take advantage of them early when you notice this beginning to happen, when you notice these patterns of avoidance, so you can fix and find a way to, coexist with a respect for each other, even if you have different ideas. It's totally possible.
Well, don't go anywhere. We'll continue this fascinating discussion after the break. Stay with us. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. We continue our discussion on couples who may be struggling because of their different political views. Some people may want to try to compromise with their partner, but does this mean they lose their identity? Let's get back to it. And Jennifer, when we talk about, as a divorce attorney, when we talk about the problems that are in the household and we can't even talk about it, are we talking about a possible solution, counseling? Would that be a good avenue so that you can try and work this out?
Yes, I think early counseling, unfortunately, we see too often that counseling late, when it's too late, just doesn't really work because you're rehashing the old issues. But you both have to go in with just the mindset of, I want to learn how to be a better communicator myself. I want to learn how to do this better, right? If you drag your spouse, so you're hoping that they're going to learn new ways, just throw your money away. I mean, it's going to be a waste of time. But if you go into it genuinely with the curiosity of, we could do this in a different way, I think you're going to get good results. I would also look at some relationship coaching, which is a little different than therapy, but that's more solution focused. It can be, there's it's not a regulated area, so you have to be careful. I would get good referrals for that. And something, if you feel like you're on the brink, is called discernment counseling, which is not marriage counseling, though it's with a therapist, but it's with a very focused idea of, do we need to ditch this relationship? Like, it's not working for me, and it's probably not working for you either. So let's actually talk about that, and then we can talk about things that we're willing to do if we want to stay together.
Now, is it a bad route and a bad sign if you, as a equal partner in a relationship, decide
to cave in. And okay, I'll just go Republican with her, or I'll go Democrat with him. Do you lose some of yourself as a result of just giving in order to make it a better relationship?
I mean, generally speaking, yes, because what that does is it builds resentment. So if you feel like you can't be truly yourself in the relationship, you can't be voting for the people you want to vote for, you can't be participating in the campaigns you want to participate in, then you're giving up a big part of yourself. And while it may ease the tension in the moment, it's going to create more and more tension that will break apart. So I think it's really, I mean, that's for some people, politics isn't that important. So if you're somebody who's like, I've always been a Republican and and now I'm looking elsewhere or whatever. I've always been a Democrat, but I've not heard this actually, but I really love what Trump is saying. That if it's just not important to you, then yeah, sure, whatever. But if it is something that's important to you, and that's why the conflict is erupting, is because it's important. Like I really feel threatened by your values, right? I mean, if we cut down to the core of it, that's what's happening. Is these are very triggering conversations. But you can learn skills to navigate triggering conversations in a way where they don't trigger you anymore.
Absolutely. And now we're seeing a trend with many young people out there, Jennifer, where they are signing up for these dating apps where it's conservatives only or it's Democrats only, and you date someone with the same political ideology. Do you recommend that? Or are you missing out as well when you do something like that, when you're only dating Republicans or you're only dating Democrats?
I mean, I think that depends on you, right? I've always been somebody who enjoys a little, spark, a little banter, in everything. But when I go home at night, I really want to be with somebody where I feel safe and secure. And having
Right,
somebody who's
right.
constantly antagonizing me about my politics is not necessarily going to make for the best, bedroom, whatever. So, I think it's probably not a bad idea to really get serious about the things that are important to you. And if going on an app where you are sharing the same ideology is important, it's just like a religion, like a Christian app for Christians or Jewish apps for, if that religion is important to you, then finding somebody who shares that is going to be a good starting place, I would think.
All right. And if all of that doesn't work that we talked about here today, just call Jennifer Hargrave in Dallas for a divorce. Call it a day.
Absolutely. HargraveFamilyLaw.com.
Still ahead here on The Factor, people are relying more on AI these days. Although the tech is smart, it's not 100% efficient in problem solving. We'll explain after the break. I'm Isiah Carey, here to shake things up with the stories that hit hard and matter most. Here on The Factor, we cover news with grit and authenticity. We challenge the status quo and get down to real talk and bold discussions. Join us as we amplify the voices that disrupt, inspire, and lead the charge for change. Your story is power, and we're here to unleash it.
The Isiah Factor Uncensored, weeknights at 10:30 on Fox 26 and streaming on Fox Local. This program is being brought to you by Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer.
All righty, welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. According to medical experts, AI should not be used for medical advice. One man ended up poisoned after taking diet advice from ChatGPT. Our next guest has more.
And joining us now here on The Factor Uncensored, we have with us Dr. Danish Ali from Archpoint Pain Institute. Dr. Ali, AI, artificial intelligence, is invading our lives, and there are many different platforms out there like ChatGPT and Meta and many others, I think Gemini. But we have an individual who used one of those platforms to try and lose weight. What's our understanding what happened to this man, or try to get healthier, and it put him in a pickle?
Yeah, Isaiah. No, that's a good point. And it is true, Isaiah. What we're seeing is, AI and ChatGPT and all these others that are coming out may be good to give you some recipes and tell you about, what sort of, photos would look good with, your clothes and whatnot. But we definitely want to take the medical advice that they give, or ChatGPT and other AI platforms give, with a grain of salt, right? No pun intended, because the story that we're about to talk about is a gentleman who had high blood pressure, and he looked up how to lower his blood pressure. And one of the alternatives was to lower your salt intake, and ChatGPT suggested sodium bromide. And this individual started using sodium bromide and started replacing it. And before we knew it, a few weeks later, Isaiah, this guy was hallucinating. He was delirious, not feeling like himself. And he went to the hospital and found that he had bromide poisoning. That is actually a very dangerous compound that can happen when bromide poisons your internal organs and builds up in your system. Thankfully, he's okay. He got IV fluids, he got a bunch of medications, and he's doing fine. But this case shows us that we need to be very cautious when we attempt to get medical advice from one of these AI platforms, and it can be very dangerous indeed.
Absolutely. Now, we have seen this in the past, especially when we were all introduced to Google, and people would use Google to get medical advice, to figure out if they're sick or not, and they would just drive themselves crazy, because every symptom, every ailment you had, Google would essentially say you're dying. Your life is over.
That's correct.
And you can tell, just like a kid, you can tell someone, hey, don't do this with it, and that's exactly what they will do with it. So how can you convince people that AI is not the avenue to monitor, to make you a healthy person, to check on your blood pressure, to help you lose weight? How do you send that message home and remind them of this guy whose life was in jeopardy and health was in jeopardy?
Yeah, Isaiah, I think that AI, ChatGPT, these sorts of platforms are good ways to enlighten yourself, get some information or even some background, and it can kind of give it to you in a more layman terms that you may be able to understand. But take that knowledge and go discuss it with another professional in that field, right? So, for example, it may be a physician in the medical field, or it's a car issue. Maybe your car's not starting, and you put some of the things that happened, and it shoots out some places where you can start. But you still ultimately want to take it to the mechanic for him to diagnose it and figure out what's going on. But at least you've got some questions, and you've got a good platform where you can have a in-line discussion with that professional about what are avenues and what are things that can be done. So you can use that information, but don't use that as the sole information and just run with it like this gentleman gentleman did, where he started consuming bromide, which, by the way, bromide's been prohibited for years in the States here. And so he obtained it. And we very rarely see now the bromide poisoning. But again, just a classic example of being very careful in taking that information that you get and taking it with a grain of salt, where you can then, talk to your professional after you've, explored whatever it is that it's saying.
All righty, make sure you don't go anywhere. We'll continue this discussion after the break.
Hey, it's your girl, Carolina Sanchez, and The Nightcap is the late night show where no topic is off limits. Join me as we dive into the wild world of relationships, sex, and everything in between. From hilarious dating disasters to steamy secrets, we've got it all. We've got celebrity guests, expert advice, and a cocktail in hand. The Nightcap is your guilty pleasure. So grab your drink and tune in, because the best stories start after dark.
The Nightcap, weeknights at 11:30 on Fox 26 and Fox Local.
Welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. A cautionary warning out tonight when it comes to using AI for medical advice. It also brings up the question of the medical industry can be more accessible to patients. That's the question. Let's get back to our discussion.
And I think a lot of people use AI as a mechanism also to try and save money, so they won't have to pay for that doctor's visit, so they won't have to pay for that car repair. When it comes to the medical profession and the healthcare industry, how can you guys, and obviously I'm putting you on the spot here, but how can you guys make yourself much more accessible to the patients out there so they won't turn to something like this? They want a quick answer. What can people do, or what can you guys do in your industry to be more accessible to patients out there? I'll hear some people say, I call my doctor, I have a 2-3 week wait, or I can't get them on the phone.
Yeah, no, Isaiah, you bring up a very valid point, and those are things that we're working on in the medical field. In the background here, one of the options is to, discuss online with us. So some folks and some physicians have online portals where you can communicate and chat with the doctors. Again, there's not a short answer to that, Isaiah. And there's not something that, it's not like you can just go to the doctor and say, hey, this is the one thing, and, look at it remotely. It's like me fixing a car without the car even being here, right?
And you guys have a long list of patients to see each day.
For sure, Isaiah. So I think it's really trying to find the time, ask all questions and get some information in the background, which is totally fine, and then discuss it with your medical professional. And then together as a team, y'all can figure out what the next step would be rather than just trying to treat it on your own. Again, folks, physicians and medical professionals have gone through years of training, years of education to get to where they're at. And so they can give you that information by putting it all in together for you.
All right, but just don't use AI as your doctor.
That's
You can get
correct.
some preliminary information from there, but don't follow the instructions and then be caught taking bromide, which is, one Google search could have told you that's not good for you. I don't care what Chat GPT said. All
That's
right,
it.
Dr. Ganesh Ali, you can find you on social media as well. And of course, Arch Point Pain Institute. Always good to see you here on The Factor Uncensored. We appreciate your time, sir.
Still ahead here on The Factor Uncensored, is Las Vegas dying a slow death? We'll tell you why many people are not even going there anymore. Next.
Well, on Fox Face Off, we tell the raw, unadulterated truth.
Fox Soul Face Off
We are given the platform here with no fear.
always comes out swinging.
We should be saying, hey, stop shooting and killing people.
Nothing held back.
They wanted black hip-hop moguls and artists to continue the feud.
No punches pulled.
And shut the hell up.
You interrupt me all the time.
Tune into the show where opinions collide. Fox Soul Face Off. Weeknights at 12:30 on Fox 26 and Fox Local.
You're watching The Isiah Factor, Uncensored.
Welcome back to The Factor Uncensored, and thank you for joining us for the second half hour. Now, shifting our focus to the city of Las Vegas tonight. Sin City, it was once known as an affordable weekend vacation for many, a place where you can get all the perks basically for free. But now it may be too expensive for the average family out there. According to data, the number of overall visitors to the valley has significantly decreased. Our next guest has more.
And joining us now on The Factor Uncensored, our travel expert, Deidre Mathis of Wander Stay. Glad to have you on The Factor Uncensored. Deidre, you can remember a time when we all were going to Vegas and expensive rooms, that was a thing that never crossed our minds. Expensive food, you basically gave it to you. Drinks free while you're gambling. Things have changed, and now they're seeing a slump in travelers and visitors coming to Vegas.
Yeah, it's been difficult. Actually, it's so funny. I had a friend who traveled to Vegas about 3 months ago, and he called me while he was there. And this was probably about May. And he said, Deidre, there's no one here. And I said, what do you mean? And he said that, it's empty. The streets are empty. No one's here. And then to see this happening, I'm like, wow. So tourism in Vegas at an 11% drop from last year. So that's huge. People are just not traveling to Vegas anymore. They don't see the appeal anymore. Well, like you said, back in the day, you could get a hotel for very cheap. They almost, gave you a free trip to Vegas to come gamble.
Exactly.
Now it's the complete opposite. Hotels are charging ridiculous fees. Drinks are $30, $40 for one drink. We get Vegas usually gets a lot of Canadian tourism, and we know that with everything going on with this administration, not as many Canadians are traveling to Vegas, so they're really feeling the impacts, and it's really, really sad.
And I think there's been like a 40% drop in Canadians visiting Vegas. Now,
41%.
Hearing about tariffs may have played a role in this, but I got a suspicion greed was number one, and then now they're saying it's tariffs. But I think greed had a bigger role in this.
Oh, yeah. And there's people just honestly don't have the disposable income that they once did. So whereas people had the money to go out and gamble and go out on vacation, people are really saving every extra penny they can. So Vegas is normally known as a place where you go gamble and you go party, but people don't have that disposable income like they once did. So people are really saving their funds. And when you mix everything going together with the high, cost of traveling, with the inflation, with the administration, with their tourism rules, when you put all that together, it really just is really impacting the city of Vegas, and it's just really sad. And honestly, I think it's going to take some time before the tourism come back. I do think it will come back, but I think it will be some time.
Now, it will come back, but do you think they will have to rework their business model? Take those prices down. They're high as hell in Vegas.
They're very high. So I was watching a report today that said, an average drink in Vegas can cost you between $20 and $30 per drink. Wow. That's just ridiculous. No one is spending that amount of money to drink. So if the drinks are that high, imagine what all the other fees are like. And I was reading a report where they were saying some hotels in Vegas were now charging guests to use the refrigerators inside of their rooms. So the whole, thing behind that is they were trying to get people to, shop at their stores and eat at their restaurants. So they're going to charge a fee for people to even simply use the refrigerator in their room. And tourists are saying, we're not going for that. We're going to go somewhere else. We're going to spend our dollars somewhere else where we feel like our dollars can actually stretch. People are saying no longer can your dollar stretch in Vegas. And, it's really showing because the tourism is just really, really dropped.
When you have petty charges like that, shouldn't a smart businessman or CEO say, this is unsustainable? We're going to drive people away, not nickel and dime them, and they can continue to come with a smile. It makes no sense.
Absolutely. I own hotels here in Houston, and there's no way I would ever charge fees for simple things like using the refrigerator or early check-in or, all these little simple things that we usually would give to our guests for free. If you notice that that's not working, you need to change it pretty quickly because, word spreads, right? So, you have a couple people traveling to Vegas and they tell you about their experience and they tell a couple people and, it's a trickle down effect. People are going to say, hey, I'm not going to travel to Vegas where you're going to charge me to use the refrigerator. I'm I'm going to go to another city where my money is going to stretch further. So yeah, they really have to wake up and see what's going on in the economy. And people are truly looking for a deal. They want their money to stretch. They want to feel like they're getting, something out of the deal. And when you're traveling to a place that's nickeling and diming you for every single thing, you're not going to want to go there. You're not going to have a good time. So you're going to tell your friends about it, your family about it, and that's really going to have an impact. And so I'm hoping that these people see this and they truly make a change so that the tourism in Vegas can go back up.
Absolutely. Or next time you and I will be talking about a lot of bankruptcies going on in Vegas with these hotels and casinos. We'll just have to see. Deidre Mathis, for those who are interested in your hotels where the refrigerator service is free, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So Wonder Stay Boutique Hotel, find us online at wonderstayboutiquehotel.com. We don't nickel and dime you. We give you a bunch of free stuff. You're going to enjoy your stay. So check us out. If you don't want to travel to Vegas, come to Houston. We'll take care of you.
All right. We'll get a card game going at Wonder Stay for you.
Absolutely. Good old card game going.
Still ahead tonight, we talk about the future of employment right here in America and how you need to be prepared. Keep it here. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. By now, you know AI is evolving and a part of our everyday world now. And there are a lot of questions about if it will take everyone's job. Our next guest has more details about those concerns.
And joining us on The Factor Uncensored tonight, we have with us political analyst Dr. Dietrich von Biedenfeld. Dr. von Biedenfeld, the American economy was built on the job market and working. We all work here in this country. But what does the future hold for many of us? On one end, we have Wall Street and the economy telling us one thing, and then on the other thing, we're scared to death of AI and the future of our jobs. Which direction should we be looking at when it comes to our futures and sustaining our lifestyles?
Oh, that's such a challenging question, but very valuable for the next generation in particular as they assess their careers. We remember back in the day, petroleum engineering was one that people said, if you graduate with petroleum engineering, you're going to have a six-figure job for life. And of course, as soon as all those folks graduated 2004, 2006, the market bottomed out. We talked about real estate, and now commercial real estate is struggling. So every time somebody picks a profession, we're going to be cliched and say, try to find what you love and the money will follow, because that really does seem to be true. Each of these professions, including coding, which was one of the quintessential professions of the 21st century, now many of these young graduates are finding quite a bit of struggle trying to find regular employment that's not contract, not gig work, or where they don't have to supplement it with being a barista or an Uber driver. So,
and really quick before you move on, because a lot of people suggested coding. I mean, it was crazy out there. And now you're telling us people are having a job sustaining as a result of going into coding.
Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So at the end of the day, a lot of these philosophy majors are going to be proven correct if you're in the right timeline to be shown how critical thinking distinguishes them from individuals who can plug things in, where these large language models, these LLMs, are really dominating the market, particularly with ChatGPT, Perplexity, and other AI models. So at the end of the day, critical thinking is going to be the one way that we are able to distinguish ourselves from AI. And of course, politicians, because they vote themselves pay raises and vote themselves accountability and vote themselves emergency essential status whenever we have a government shutdown. So
there you go.
Politics is really the only safe job in the U.S. But we know that unemployment rates are up. We've seen how some of these market indicators for men have been less positive than for women. And so some of the changes that the current administration is implementing with regard to manufacturing and vocational careers are actually serving many of these individuals, a lot of these young men who may not have been college ready, may not have had the maturity, attention span, or so forth to really progress or matriculate in higher education. Now they're able to get associate's degrees and other technology and hard skilled jobs where AI simply cannot change the oil on a car, cannot reprogram your phone, and other sort of hard skill sets or physical skill sets that distinguish them from others. So those are the ways of the future. But keep in mind, these stats are very unreliable. We're not just talking about political things like the BLS directors firing. We're also talking about the reality that even during COVID, individuals in places like Hawaii, where people often supplemented their lives on 2 to 3 jobs, losing one of them didn't move them into the classification of unemployment in the same way that it might have in Texas, Idaho, or Ohio, because they still had jobs. They were still gainfully employed. But those 2 jobs weren't enough to supplement cost of living in the way that 3 were.
Don't go anywhere. We'll continue talking about this important topic after the break.
reputation.
And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. AI is here. We all know it, and it could have a major impact on the job market and our jobs out there. Let's get back to our expert to tell us how we can prepare.
No, what we've just heard from you about future generations, people who may be in school now. What about those who are currently in the job market? Do you see any significant changes for our crew out there?
Unfortunately, we're seeing flattening in managerial positions. If you're between 35 and 45 and you are not finding success applying 20, 30 times in a week for new jobs, you may need to reskill. You may need to look at certifications. Of course, colleges, community colleges, and even certain certificate programs and accrediting agencies for certain groups, whether it be for lawyers, engineers, et cetera, can help you upskill to create that. But really, there's a flattening because the reality is, even though the EEOC, which is a little bit defanged under the current administration anyway, has typically looked at things such as age, sex, and other sort of identifying classifications. The reality is employers can find other ways to exclude prospective candidates for jobs without identifying these prohibited factors. So they may not say so, but if you're 40 and they don't see upward progression, they have a 35-year-old applicant, there is a danger that they're going to pick them. If a woman of childbearing years, we still see discrimination lawsuits where employers have picked a woman who is past that prospective idea, even though my mother had me at 41, right? So that's not a guaranteed formula to say, oh, she's 30, she's safe in the employment aspect of employment discrimination. So we still see these things recurring, but we also don't have a functional EEOC or other federal departments to pursue these discriminatory claims in a way. And so at the end of the day, the only real, I think, progressive pathway to find employment if you've been denied for multiple months is to reskill and upskill.
Okay. Well, we appreciate that advice. And before we wrap up with you, we've heard a lot of young people told, and you've brought it up quite a bit here tonight on The Factor, that maybe college may be not the route for you. Maybe trade school, maybe junior college, a 2-year degree. What are your thoughts about that for young people who say, I'm just going to waste my parents' time 4 years at a university?
The unfortunate thing is we're of course reaffirming some of the ideas that don't guarantee returns on investment. And so I have to say, a lot of those contacts that you get in fraternities, a lot of those contacts you get in the business or the law fraternity that you're in college, those things actually help you more than just a solid resume. Because I promise you, there are a number of people who were second in their class at a second-tier school or a state school that are doing better in their profession than the Ivy Leaguer who was last in their class or who had no social contacts to build on that resume. So at the end of the day, it really is about who you know, and you want to make sure you're building those interpersonal contacts because AI is going to exclude your resume no matter what.
That damn AI. All right, Dr. Dietrich von Bietenfeld, all our lives we had to fight. And now who knew AI would be a battle? Always good to see you here on The Factor Uncensored, and we appreciate your time, sir, with the great advice for young people and people our age right now dealing with the job market and uncertainty that may be out there, because we definitely need some pointers from you.
Still ahead tonight on The Factor, how dining out is being impacted by some people's shrinking budget. Keep it here on The Factor.
Nobody does more during hurricane season than your Gulf Coast Weather Authority.
Coverage on air, online, on social, and on our 24/7 Fox Local app.
Hurricane gear tests for emergency preparedness supplies.
Daily tropical updates give you the earliest possible warnings of developing storms.
And now includes forecasts for some of our area's most popular vacation spots.
Complete hurricane season coverage from your Gulf Coast Weather Authority.
And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. The struggle is real out there. Just how damn broke are you? Some adults are opting to buy kiddie meals. You know, the meals for the kids at McDonald's and other fast food joints and restaurants because the price doesn't hurt their pockets as much. Our next guest has more.
And joining us now here on The Factor Uncensored, we have CPA and attorney Lucy Petrie, who now may be part-time chef, depending on which way the wind blows here. Now, Lucy, we're hearing that more and more American families are looking for ways to saving money when they eat out, And now we're hearing, Lucy, some are resorting to the kids' menu to save money.
I love me a kid's meal, okay, because it's like it's the right portion, and I don't overeat it, and sometimes I get a toy depending on where you know. I'm kidding, but look, it's like portion control as well. So I do love me a happy meal, and I heard that the McDonald's is even catering to adults now. And they had for a limited time a meal that gave toys that are for adults, not kids anymore. So it is a thing, and I think the portions got way out of control too.
But when we talk about, you know, the kiddie menu, more adults ultimately, you know, we're talking about portion control now, but they also want to save money in this current economy where things are kind of tight for families out there, especially if you're going out and you're taking a full family. I think, Lucy, the last numbers I saw indicated that a single person, and this is the source of CNET, spends anywhere from $2,800 to $4,300 annually eating out, and it comes to about $240 a month. Is that high? Is that low? What?
That's a lot. That is a lot of money. That could be a car payment. And I think a lot of people cannot afford it. They may be going into debt and spending money on their credit card to do this. That is a lot of money. And I also heard that the cost of eating out went up by almost 4% this past year. So my friends and I, we have been taking turns and cooking at each other's house or having a potluck. Like somebody will bring the wine, somebody will bring a side dish, and this saves us a lot of money because if you also factor in the cost of a couple of cocktails and wine and the service charges, that saves a lot.
That's a nightmare, you know, when you have the service charge. In some instances, there's some restaurants with the automatic service charge. Also, you have the gratuity on top of that, and they just keep tacking on and adding on. And then there's an expense that recently made the news where some restaurants are adding on to help the employees with insurance, and the list just keeps going on. Obviously, that's okay for those who can afford it, but those who can't afford it, it becomes a real nightmare. Now, for many people, the best place is to go to the grocery store and just buy your food and cook it at home.
And, you know, that can be part of the social process as well, hanging out with your friends and cooking. And you can really save a whole lot of money by cooking at home and getting creative. And the cost of food itself has increased, but it has not increased as much as the cost of eating out.
You know what, Lucy, you just gave me a good idea, and we need to patent this and market this. Make it the grocery date where you both go out, whether it's you and a significant other, husband, wife, friends. You go out to the grocery store, you pick your food together, and then you go to one of your houses and you cook that food. Now, you don't want to do it at the first day because you'll have some weirdo at your house, you know. and then they may be bringing coupons too, and you're like, what the hell? This date ain't going anywhere. But start at the grocery store, then get together and cook it. So it's one big adventure for a few hours together.